About nutrition, identifying the effects of malnutrition and failure to thrive. We're going to talk about the unknowns about aging, nutrition, and chronic disease. I want to do a quick check-in though. How many of you have started to use any information that you've used in these courses? Raise your hand. I know I can't see you. I'm hoping a lot of you. How many of you have started to use the Parkinson's principle of setting time and date deadlines for yourself? How many of you have started to use the Pomodoro technique of that 25 minutes of focus and 5 minutes of transition? If you haven't started to use those yet, in this series, you will be able to find more opportunities to apply those principles as we go through information about nutrition, helping your aging parents have better nutrition, and everything that applies to better health. Let us start, as always, with these. Guess what? It's the housekeeping tasks. Let's get started. As you know, I use the term elderly parent, elderly for people you are providing care for. Print out the outline, print out the slides, take notes, fill in the blanks as you go with me through these webinars. Let's talk about the objectives of identifying the effects of malnutrition and failure to thrive. And we'll define these terms, so don't worry if you don't know the medical speak just yet. At the end of identifying the effects of malnutrition and failure to thrive, you should be able to relate statistics about chronic disease and the risks to health. You should be able to recognize the importance of good nutrition and poor nutrition for elderly parents, and focus on nutrition and physical activity to support the health of elderly parents. Let's talk about unknowns about aging, nutrition, and chronic disease. By talking about this, you should be able to describe the connection between chronic disease, nutrition, and health, and make good nutrition, better nutrition, a priority for yourself and for aging parents. We talk about chronic disease a lot, and I want to share some more statistics. This is according to the RAND Corporation. 60% of American adults, about 150 million people, have at least one chronic disease. And you know what chronic diseases are by now: heart disease, arthritis, diabetes. Statistics rise. 42%, that is almost 50%. Half of Americans have more than one chronic health condition. Then we go to 20%. 20% have 5 or more chronic conditions. Can you imagine how miserable that makes life feel? Can you imagine not feeling good every day because you have all of these health issues? The costs of treating chronic diseases are high. 12% of people with chronic disease account for more than 40% of U.S. healthcare spending. And chronic disease is not only disease of the elderly. Chronic diseases start about age 39 or 40. Around half of people in their mid-40s to mid-60s live with multiple health conditions. Chronic diseases, as you will learn if you have not yet, have far-reaching effects on nutrition, how you feel every day, the care that you will need when you are older, your ability to get up, get out, and get around. Good health it's a multifaceted idea, a multitasking idea. Every disease is connected to every other disease and every other system of the body. Let's talk about PCPs. If you don't know what PCP is, that is medical speak for primary care physician. PCP. Things I don't talk to you about: nutrition. Why is that? Well, PCP is that medical term for primary care physicians. They are not specialists in nutrition. PCP is the doctor that you see for regular medical care. The majority of doctors view the concern of aging and frailty, so the idea of getting old, as just something that happens with age. Few PCPs talk to you or an elderly parent about nutrition unless you show up and there is a significant weight loss or a significant weight gain. Then that discussion really probably isn't about nutrition. It's more about weight and what's going on that you have gained weight or lost weight. Changes in your weight are documented in your medical chart, and you should know you should weigh yourself at least once a week. The physician may tell your elderly parent, oh, you need to eat better. But few really offer that step-by-step plan or a concrete plan that you want to help lose, gain, or maintain the weight of an elderly parent. This puzzle of how to do this, it is called, this is a medical speak term, the anorexia of aging. So if any of you know what anorexia means, it means people who are just so thin that their bones are showing. It's also called malnutrition, and we don't talk about it. Elderly parents, believe it or not, can be overweight. You could weigh 500 pounds and still be malnutritioned. Probably doesn't make logical sense, but it will in a little bit. PCPs are not trained to evaluate or create plans for nutrition concerns for the elderly. Healthy lifestyles, a lot of components go together. Proper nutrition is one of them. A balanced diet, what do you think it's composed of? We got your fruits, your vegetables, whole grains, some dairy, some protein. Which do you think is most important for nutrition? It is protein. Protein is one of the most critical components for elderly parents and for middle-aged adults because low protein and poor diet equals malnutrition. It equals more chronic diseases. It equals health issues, more days of feeling bad instead of feeling good. Today, so many of us are rushing around. How many of you make time to eat a balanced diet and to exercise regularly? Proper nutrition has a significant effect on long-term health, on well-being, and healthcare expenses. I want to share another statistic. So according to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, typical American diets exceed the recommended intake levels or limits in 4 categories. 1, calories from solid fats and sugars. 2, refined grains. So that is like white bread, white rice, anything that has white in it, probably not really good for you. You're better off with brown rice and wheat bread. We eat too much salt. We eat too much saturated fat. Less than 5% of adults participate in 30 minutes of physical activity each day. Only 1 in 3 adults receive the recommended amount of physical activity each week. More than 80% don't meet the guidelines for both aerobic and muscle strengthening activities. We need both if we want to avoid being a fall risk, if we want to stay in our homes when we're older. And research reports in another 10 or fewer years, by 2030, half of all adults in the United States will be obese. Shocking statistics. We can learn from these studies and other medical research if we recognize and understand what all of this means. It supports us being as proactive as possible from a young age with nutrition, exercise, and maintaining a healthy weight. The part that I say, if recognized, is especially relevant. When we're not raised in families where our parents are aware of the importance of nutrition and exercise and a healthy weight, where they haven't been educated, we don't learn those skills from our elderly parents. And like many of the people in these statistics, we become one of the statistics of people who don't exercise, who have 1 chronic disease, who have more than 1 chronic disease, who have 5 chronic diseases. Knowing these numbers and knowing these statistics is in part how we become motivated to take action. The opposite motivation can be seeing our elderly parents suffer. That can be another part that motivates us to say, oh my gosh, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to live like my elderly parents. So I need to do something. If you're not currently physically active and if your nutrition is so-so, does any of this information or your interactions, caring with your elderly parents, is any of this motivating you to think about a lifestyle change? Aging doesn't mean that you have to be old and frail. It doesn't mean that you have to live like your elderly parents. It really is a choice. So let's talk about malnutrition. You can see this lady is very, very thin on the slide. As we talked about, most doctors don't address nutrition at regular medical appointments. A high percentage of aging adults are malnourished. They're malnutritioned. Malnutrition is a persistent problem in hospitalized patients, with 43% of aging adults in hospitals confirmed to be malnutrition. Why do you think that is? Well, it's simple. If you have poor nutrition, you have poor health. You have more health problems, you have more chronic diseases. If you have more chronic diseases, you spend time in the medical system. You use more money on care. You end up in the emergency room, who then notices that you're malnutritioned. But here's the problem. Even after a diagnosis of malnutrition, the primary responsibility is with the patient to resolve that issue. So somebody tells your elderly parent they're malnutritioned, you're not around, what happens? Your elderly parent doesn't know that it's serious. They don't take action. They don't do anything about it. Let's talk more about malnutrition and what it means. It results from two types of nutritional states, like I mentioned. One is undernutrition. You're very thin, where a person is not getting enough calories, proteins, or micronutrients from food. The second is overnutrition. You're overweight, you're obese. You're taking in too many bad calories, and those calories are not supporting your nutrition. Being overweight usually is a result of low nutrition. It's eating bad foods. Malnutrition then results in physical declines, poor overall health, the weight loss and the weight gains we talked about, more extended and frequent hospital stays, and irreversible health declines. We can't turn back the clock. Nutrition needs change considerably with age, and age beginning around age 50. If you look at dietary needs over time, the dietary needs of a 30-year-old are very different from a 50-year-old to a 70-year-old. Many of our parents, they think they're eating a healthy diet, yet they're malnutritioned, they're malnourished. You can't tell by looking at somebody. And regular visits to the doctor does nothing to address malnutrition. How do we make nutrition a priority? So hospitalization happens, elderly parents are in there. The hospital's treating their acute or life-threatening issue. Malnutrition, while it is serious, unless it involves specific aspects that we'll talk about, isn't really considered an acute issue for attention during a hospital visit. It might be mentioned, so when malnutrition is diagnosed in the hospital, somebody might say something, but there's usually no specific follow-up for medical care. The follow-ups are left to you and your elderly parent, who might have no idea what to do to improve nutrition. You might not even know anything about the importance of protein. So how many times do we hear this? Your elderly parents say, oh, I'm old, I'll eat whatever I want, even though that may be frozen TV dinners, canned foods, sweets, ice cream, salty snacks, drive-through fast foods, and other things that are so unhealthy. We all have, unless we become interested and educated. There's lack of association between input of what we eat and the output of feeling good. It's really pretty simple. Our bodies run like a car. If you put in a bad tank of gas, your car sputters and it spits. You put in a tank of premium, you have no problems at all. The foods that we put into our bodies have an effect on the way that we feel every day. Older adults, people over age 50, need more protein to maintain muscle mass, strength, and to have the energy to get up and get going every day. If you or an elderly parent is tired all the time, you may be malnutritioned, or you may have other health issues in addition to nutrition and low protein. The other thing that we talk about a lot is for people who are tired. So elderly parents are tired, you're young, you're tired all the time. Why do you think it is? Well, as caregivers, it could be because you're burning the candle at both ends. You're working, caring for your family, going to school, caring for elderly parents. Maybe you're lucky to get 4 hours of sleep a night, 5, 6. We all need a little bit more sleep. But in addition to that sleep, we need good nutrition to fuel our body. We need to take that nutrition and fuel it into exercise and activity. Because believe it or not, making time for exercise and activity gets rid of all that gunk and worry that is clogging in your brain up here, makes you feel better physically. Exercise gives you more energy. Sounds counterproductive, I know. You exercise, you get tired, you think, I'm going to be more tired. Wrong. You're going to have more energy. Your brain is going to be clearer. You will feel better. But none of this happens unless you take action and follow the step-by-step processes that we're talking about here in this program. Let's talk about overestimating health, because this happens. Research confirms that 40% of adults between the ages of 60 to 85 overestimate the quality of their health. Overestimating good health means that older adults, older parents are shocked when health declines happen. Instead of taking an interest at that point, investigating actions or seeking education, a lot of older adults and older parents, they do nothing. Because why do we think? Because they don't know what to do. They procrastinate. And another reason, most doctors don't offer any specific recommendations. It's that thought process of, well, you know, this happens with age. You're getting old. This is just what happens. No, 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 that is so wrong. Nutrition has broad-reaching effects on health and the ability of elderly adults to stay at home. Also, the effect on us in our middle ages. As we'll talk about, older adults who have chronic diseases are more likely to have nutritional concerns that result in all of these declines. And as we talked, greater use of doctor visits and the healthcare system. So what did we learn here? What did we learn about the unknowns about nutrition, aging, and chronic disease? Regardless of the health status of an aging parent or yourself, take a look at nutrition as an essential step to prevent future health concerns, to prevent being diagnosed with chronic diseases, to prevent having more days when you feel bad instead of good. While we all want to have our cake and eat it too, sometimes you can do that. But learning about the role of protein to preserve muscle strength and physical activity is one component of helping elderly parents stay at home. We can't overestimate how these little daily actions that are consistent over time. We talked about the Parkinson's principle. We talked about procrastination. We talked about the Pomodoro technique. Imagine how your life, how the life of your elderly parent, and how you feel might change if you took 25 minutes a day, 25 minutes a day, and started to exercise every single day. You might not notice a lot at first. You might notice more aches and pains because you're starting to use body parts that you haven't used in a while. Just like learning new things can task our brain a little bit. 25 minutes a day learning a new habit, learning something new, amazing results. Maybe not in a week, but you might notice changes in 2 weeks, in a month, in 2 months. Imagine where you could be in a year. Your life could be totally transformed. Your health could totally be transformed. The health and the care that you give to your elderly parents, totally transformed. It's up to you. It's a choice. I'm Pamela D Wilson. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I appreciate it. I will see you in another webinar soon.